Welcome everybody to the Welcome to the SportsCast. Sorry, my hair is all messed up. My name is Ben, and first of all, I would like to wish you all a happy Easter. If you're celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ today, or if you're just going out and doing some Easter egg hunting and eating candy, however you choose to celebrate, happy Easter. Like I said before, my name is Ben, and this is my co-host. Give me just a second here. This is Granville, the Commerce Comet, Sexton.
Alright.
And welcome to...
Don't follow on this one.
It's Mickey Mantle's nickname. He was from Commerce, Kansas, so they called him the Commerce Comet.
Okay.
You run so fast, Granville, you are a Commerce Comet.
Alright, I'll take that. Comet's kind of slow.
No, they go really fast.
Yeah, they're fast? Oh, okay.
I mean, they go pretty fast.
Yeah,
They
okay.
go faster than anything probably a man has ever made.
It's probably true.
So, anyway, besides debating science there for a second, welcome to the SportsCast. Today, we'll discuss various different sports-related topics, like we always do. But
it's almost like it's in the name.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
exactly like,
no way.
It's almost like what's
I thought we were going to talk about, like, pie and cooking. And...
I mean, we're just talking about how fast comets go.
That's true.
So, we will discuss, I think the key focus that we will discuss today of our
Welcome to the
conversation.
Science Cast, where we talk about the latest news in modern science.
Yeah. We'll be discussing a little bit of the USFL. The USFL, for those of you who haven't watched or haven't seen or haven't heard about this, I've been excited for the last couple of years, has rebooted. In the grand tradition of every film property nowadays, the USFL had to have their own reboot. And so far, it's something. And we'll discuss that here in a little bit. I have watched most of all three of the games that have been played so far. Granville...
I have not.
Granville tuned into the last 2 minutes of their first game, which was...
I wish I watched more, but...
and he watched the Michigan Panthers...
Houston Gamblers
game.
I watched the first half, and then I missed the second half.
Oh,
I watched the highlights and so forth.
I watched the part of the second half.
Okay.
I watched 2/3 of the second half.
I watched a recap and so forth. So I know what happened in that game. I have no clue what happened in the third game, though.
Yeah, that was the New Orleans Breakers, my team, versus the Philadelphia
Oh, you're
Stars.
a Breakers fan. I
Yeah.
thought you were a Stars fan.
No, I've always been, as long as there's been I've known about the USFL, I've always been a Breakers fan, no matter if they're in Boston, which is where they were originally, or Los Angeles, or New Orleans, or Portland. It was also where
Panthers. The Michigan Panthers are just the best team out there, and we had a fluke of a game today. But Shea Patterson,
he actually played.
He played well in the second half.
Yeah, he played better down the stretch, but
he still was not the greatest in the second half. But
we'll go through each of the games real quick here. The 3 games so far. So really, it's been 3 good games, or 3 decent games. Not maybe NFL quality, but 3 entertaining games.
But yeah, I mean, they've well surpassed expectations so far.
And this is week 1, and they've only had 3 weeks of training camp before this. So these are still teams that are trying to gel together. But so first game was the New Jersey Generals versus the Houston. No, it wasn't the Gamblers. Who was they play? I already forgot.
I'll look it up.
Look it up real quick. It's the...
hey, it's not like we have an audience at all.
No.
Now we have a VOD, so now we can. Now we have to be a little more careful.
But New Jersey versus... Oh, dang it. I'm blanking so hard right now.
New Jersey Generals versus Birmingham.
Oh, the Birmingham Stallions.
Okay.
The hometown team.
Yeah.
And that was a really good game.
That was a good game.
So I watched the whole thing. Granville, like I said, came back and watched the game-winning drive there.
I was late.
But it was actually a really interesting game. So for New Jersey, they had lost their original starting quarterback before the beginning of the season. So they signed, I guess, Luis Perez, who some of you who followed spring football over the last couple of years, probably the name rings a bell. He was...
Is he Birmingham Iron?
Yes, I believe he was with the Birmingham Iron in the AAF, and he was also on
which was the championship team, I believe.
No.
Who was the team that won the AAF?
It would have been we were the Orlando
Apollos. It was the Orlando
with
Apollos because they went undefeated.
Or I think they went like 7-1, but they only lost
something
one game.
Like that.
But they had the GOAT of the AAF, Garrett Gilbert.
Oh, was Gilbert? Oh, I thought you were gonna say Hackenberg for a second.
Oh no, why would I say Christian Hackenberg? Hackenberg is never really GOAT.
No, Hackensack is the GOAT.
No, I had Garrett Gilbert as their quarterback and Steve Spurrier as their head coach.
Right, they had Spurrier. That's right.
So
it's gonna be hard to lose if you have Steve Spurrier.
Even like a 78-year-old Steve Spurrier is better than most of the coaches in these spring leagues.
We'll see how Jeff Fisher can do.
He didn't do real well.
He did not. He made some kind of rough calls from last
people were joking like, how is Jeff Fisher going to go 8-8 in a game in a season that only has 10 games? But anyway, so that first game, so they got Luis Perez off the bench,
right? Which was a stellar pickup.
It was a very good pickup for them, and overall, of the quarterbacks that have played so far, of the 6 quarterbacks, or 7 or 8, I guess, Luis Perez, has definitely done the best. He threw almost 70% or 75% completion percentage.
And this is Luis Perez was second in MVP voting for the AAF. I'm like 90% certain he was
up
right
there,
behind Garrett Gilbert.
Well, and the problem was with Perez was, in the XFL, he came in, but he was also sitting on the bench in the XFL, and he came in and he played well off the bench in the XFL. So Perez has talent that somehow coaches, at least on-field talent, that coaches don't see until he actually gets out there and starts performing well. Mm-hmm. So
you wonder if there's more to it.
He's probably one of those guys who just doesn't show up in practice. He's not a practice player, but he's the guy who can go out and win in games.
Maybe, yeah.
But Perez did good. I don't have the exact stats on me at the moment, but he threw over 70% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, a little under 200 yards. This is not a passing league yet. A lot of drops.
Very, very heavy run.
That's the only, and that kind of makes sense because it's a lot easier in 3 weeks to set up a running game versus a passing game. Yeah. So there wasn't a lot there, really, period, except for the first 2 series of the game, of that New Jersey Birmingham game, where they had 2 really long bombs by both quarterbacks. Magoo was their starting quarterback in Birmingham. He threw a long touchdown pass, and literally the first play of the USFL was a long pass by Luis Perez down the sidelines. But Magoo ended up, over the course of the game, he did not play real well, and he ended up rolling his ankle. And so
and that's when they pull in Johnson. Am I correct?
No,
Johnson was with Perez.
Yeah, Johnson. Okay, so we'll touch on him in a second. So Magoo gets injured, and by that time, New Jersey is up like 21-7. And New Jersey's also swapping in a second quarterback, Cornelius Johnson, who I think that's his name.
Cornelius Johnson.
I think so. I'm not 100% sure.
I'll double check that because that's the Michigan wide receiver.
Oh, maybe not.
So that might be.
It's something with a C, I think.
So it's Birmingham.
No, he's a New Jersey
Oh, it's
general.
New Jersey. Okay.
Yeah. So, but he was in, and they did not attempt to throw the ball with him, really. He was a running down quarterback. He ran really well when he was in there. I think he had over 60 yards rushing.
No, it's Birmingham.
No, he's on the...
Generals are the one that have Luis Perez.
Yeah, and he was splitting time with Luis
Perez. That
was
D. Johnson. I can't remember what the...
I can't.
DeAndre Johnson, excuse me. So DeAndre Johnson and Luis Perez were splitting time for New Jersey. And I don't know if Perez got injured or I think Mike Riley is the head coach.
This is still a new league, and we did not have a lot of time this week, so you'll have to forgive us with how little preparation we've been able to do with this.
Yes, but Mike Riley is the head coach of New Jersey. He was, you college football fans out there might remember Mike Riley from his stints at Nebraska, most specifically. He's most known for his time at Nebraska. Mike Riley was splitting reps with his quarterbacks. He had Luis Perez and DeAndre Johnson. And DeAndre Johnson was their running quarterback. I think he only attempted 4 passes in the game.
Yeah.
And Luis Perez was their throwing back. And so, in the second half, Magoo, Birmingham's quarterback, gets injured. And they bring in their backup, Smith. I can't remember his first name off the top of my head.
But 1 second, please.
You're my fact checker here.
Now we have in the past I could just look this up and there'd be no consequences because we'd have no viewers, but now we have a VOD.
But
we have a viewer out there, ladies and gentlemen. Or lady and maybe gentlemen.
Probably gentlemen. Either way, Smith. Not Le'Veon Smith. Maybe he actually is Le'Veon Smith.
Okay, let me look it up. It's
That sounds familiar.
Birmingham. I almost looked up Iron.
Jamar Smith. Okay. I knew there was an apostrophe in there. I couldn't remember.
It wasn't an apostrophe.
Yeah. So Javon Smith.
Hey, if you're the person in the in the chat, drop a Jamar Smith for us.
Drop a Jamar Smith in there, please. Yeah. Anyway, Jamar Smith comes in midway through the third quarter, and he didn't play spectacularly. He played good. He played better than Magoo. He ended up averaging 7 yards an attempt, a little bit under 50% completion percentage.
That's not bad at all.
But yeah, again, he was a bench player. He wasn't the tap starter, so he probably had even less practice experience coming in than Magoo did. But he still came in, led him back 2 touchdowns, ended up threw 1 touchdown pass and ran for another touchdown pass, and ended up leading Birmingham back, while at that point in the game, Mike Riley was attempting to play turtle ball and kept DeAndre Johnson in at quarterback and ended up running the ball 25-ish times in a row.
Yeah, 25-ish.
And they did score.
Which is so much.
Well, they did score a touchdown in this, and they did call a couple passes.
They kicked a field goal.
Well, they did kick a field goal, too. Yeah. They also ran for a touchdown during that.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
But, yeah, so what happened was it was 21-21, and one of those touchdowns was during that long series of runs.
Right, but it's 21-21.
Yeah. Again, so New Jersey gets the ball again.
Right.
Near the end of the game, like a couple minutes left.
Right.
And they continue to run the ball over and over again and get it into field goal range and kick the field goal, which we'll touch on this now just because there's not a better time to do it. Kicking has been absolutely terrible in the XFL, or not the XFL, the USFL.
Basically the same
Pretty
thing.
much. Kicking has been absolutely terrible in the league. I think there's been like 2 made field goals out of like 7 or 8 attempts.
Where are all these like wonderful college kickers
I know, that's what I'm
going?
thinking. Like
because they don't go to the pros. And if they do go to the pros, then they suck out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Like, you can have, like, Michigan's had, like, several good kickers.
We haven't had a bad kicker in years.
And where did they all go to?
I know Nordine is currently at the Patriots.
Well, I mean, even, like, Tech, last couple of years had a really, or when I was going, a couple of years, or maybe my junior year, we had a really good kicker that year. He was making 50-yard field goals in Division... in 1AA.
FCS,
FCS. So, where are those guys?
One of the worst FCS teams as
exactly,
well.
Pretty much the worst FCS team. But he was making good field goals. He was like our biggest offensive weapon.
Right.
But I don't know where they go to. And also, part of the problem that the USFL has is how small the rosters are. There are only 38 players. And so
there's only 38?
Mm-hmm,
wow.
On an active roster, yeah. So,
surely that'll expand over time, though, if this league can support itself over the years.
Yeah, if it can make a little bit of money, hopefully they can expand that.
Yeah.
But the problem right now is that...
I'm about to, buy some Michigan Panthers merch so I can support the USFL.
No, we'll end up going down to a game. Don't worry, Grandpa.
Yeah, well, hopefully.
But no, so one of the ways they've been cost cutting, at least in the
buy a Shea Patterson jersey.
At least in the one of the games, I think it was the second game between the problem is all the teams look alike, so I can't really...
Michigan Panthers and Houston Gamblers.
Yeah, I think...
Second game.
No, it was actually in the New Orleans game. In the New Orleans game, the
Breakers and the Stars.
Yeah, the Stars kicker was also serving as their punter. And he was a really good punter.
Right.
But he was a pretty bad kicker.
Yeah, I mean...
So I think that's one of the...
That's like high school level.
Well, yeah, that's one of the space-saving methods that they're trying to do. Really, he's trying out for the NFL as a punter. But,
right, okay.
But I'm imagining. But if he can become a good field goal kicker, then potentially. But anyway, so yeah.
And you touched on this a little bit when we were talking, this whole drone stuff.
Oh yeah, so we'll touch on, after we finish this game, we'll touch on the general.
That's right, I forgot we were... Yeah. This is why we're the highest rated sportscast out there.
We're the
That's why
only
we're
number one
sportscast.
Number one sportscast.
This is the sportscast.
Exactly, you can say it. It's right up there. It's right up there.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they kick a field goal.
Our one viewer out there, you should thank
Thank you
yourself as lucky, because one day you'll be one of millions.
Yeah, so New Jersey kicks a field goal, and then Smith,
Jamar.
Jamar.
DeAndre. No, Jamar.
Jamar Smith. Jamar Smith
but Jamar
leads
Smith
them down the
chat.
field, and they score the game-winning touchdown with 20 seconds left to go.
Yeah.
It was a really good game. So it started out really good. The middle was really and then the last quarter was a really good quarter.
And that's exactly the type of programming you want. Because if people remember that it started well and it ended well,
and that's
then they're going to walk away happy.
And that's the one thing that all three of these games that have so far been played have had.
They've
is
ended
that
very well.
Yeah, all three of them actually turned into pretty good football games in the fourth quarter. It took the teams a while to kind of gel and get the offense going. But by the fourth quarter, you were seeing consistent drives down the field, better quarterback play, and it looked like quality football.
Yeah.
I
will say
every single one of the games has been a one-score game, so they've all been close too.
The quality of football is pretty insignificant right now. I'd argue to say that some college games are better than the quality of football going on. Like if you watch a team like Alabama or Ohio State or teams like that, teams like Michigan, then you're gonna see better football than what you saw this past weekend. Especially going on in the Houston Gamblers and the
Michigan
Panthers game. It was pretty pitiful. The center, for instance, he missnapped it 5 times, and then Shea Patterson and Paxton Lynch fumbled a few times throughout the game. And maybe it's just Jeff Fisher. Maybe it's just
Well, no, I as somebody who's watched more of the total games. There's a lot of easy drop passes I've seen in the Breakers game.
Some bad drops.
In the Breakers game, they finally scored an offensive touchdown. Kyle Soter, who I was saying was the GOAT, it took him a while to get going. And again, and you can make a blame. This can serve as blame for most of the quality problems of this week of USFL football. Is that they've had 3 weeks of practice, 3 weeks of solid practice.
No, that's pitiful.
Yeah, but still better quality than the AAF had in their first week.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
But
if they can fix the drop passes problem, and honestly, I feel like it's just a lack of chemistry between the quarterbacks and the wide receivers.
And if something that I hope happens is that they stretch the field more. Something that comes with time, definitely. But I can only remember those first 2 drives in that in the first game, the Birmingham, New Jersey game. Those are the only 2 real deep balls that I can remember over the course of this weekend.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of like 20-ish yard passes, somewhat deep, but there hasn't been
quarterbacks enough.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes from they need more time to develop. Because there are guys who have great arms in this. Johnson for DeAndre Johnson, thank you. DeAndre Johnson for New Jersey has a good arm.
Luis Perez
can have a good arm. Shea Patterson
he's got a big arm. He just has a really inaccurate one.
And the same with Kyle Sloter. Sloter has a big arm.
And I'd say the same with Paxton Lynch as well.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of this is a development league at its heart.
Oh yeah.
This is you're gonna have eyes on it because it's in the spring. Because there's football fans who want to see these younger players play. And that's what the USFL is going for. They're going for this audience of hardcore football fans that want to watch football in the off-season.
Yeah. And honestly, I think it's perfectly timed because, I mean, they had it on a weekend where people are off of work. Not to mention, this is like perfectly spaced out to where it's not right after the NFL ends,
So you don't have that wear of we just had 4 months of NFL football, and then you're gonna watch the quality dip down.
Right.
Really,
like you watch the Super Bowl and you see the best play out there, and then you watch,
then you watch
5 fumbles from the Michigan Panthers.
Yeah, exactly. You watch the Birmingham Stallions barely squeak the ball into the end zone.
I mean. It was frustrating to watch some of it, but it will get better.
Yeah, it will develop with time. This is the first week.
Yeah.
And hopefully by week 3, week 4, going into the playoffs, we'll see some good football.
Yeah.
Hopefully out of this.
So, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Who is your MVP this year?
Of the league?
Of the league.
Well, we haven't seen...
I've got my pick.
We haven't seen Tampa Bay yet.
Okay.
And we haven't seen, what was the other team they're playing? The Pittsburgh Maulers. We haven't seen them. Because Jordan Tiamu, you may remember from the AAF, is the starting quarterback, or will be the starting quarterback for Tampa Bay.
Right.
He could make a shot at MVP. I think, as of right now, it's just based on 1 week, it's Luis Perez. The MVP of this week was Luis Perez. Channing Stribling, you may remember from Michigan.
Oh, Channing Stribling's in there?
Yeah, he was playing with the Philadelphia Stars, and he had an interception in the game. He did really well. And some of the Breakers running backs were good. Brian Scott was the quarterback for the Philly Stars. I'm talking about this because that was the game that just ended, so it's the most fresh in my mind. He was a part of the Spring League. And his coach in the Spring League is the coach for the Philly Stars. So he brought him in as his quarterback. And from what they were saying at the beginning of the game, they had played like 38 games together and hadn't lost one yet until today when they lost to the Breakers.
That is really funny.
Yeah, but
he sucks.
He was serviceable. I'll say he was serviceable. He had a high completion percentage, but he wasn't. And again, this is a problem with the whole league. He wasn't pushing the ball down the field. And a lot of that was the Breakers had a really good defensive line. He was constantly applying pressure.
That is one thing that I have noticed. The defensive play far outweighs the offensive play so far.
I think and part of that goes back into just kind of how football works.
Yeah.
And a little bit, it's easier to do a defense, easier to come up with a defense, and it's a lot more natural to fit into a defense and have to learn all the terminology and stuff for an offense.
That's true. I will say when you get into high NFL play, it's going to be really impossible to stop teams like the Chiefs or the Bills and so forth. But I think in a developmental league, you're going to find it's going to be easier for you to find a good defensive player than a good offensive player.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, because
you don't have good enough quarterbacks to make like a really pass heavy team or anything like that. Not yet, at least.
Not until again they get that development hopefully going. They can stretch the field a little bit more. But even in like the AAF with Garrett Gilbert wasn't throwing more than a couple hundred yards in a game.
Manager.
And in the XFL with Tiamu and PJ Walker, who were the stars of that league.
Right.
Again, they weren't getting up into the 300s-ish yards. They were playing well, don't get me wrong, but they weren't throwing the ball all over the field. They weren't slinging it around. And the hope for the quality of play eventually comes from, does this actually become a developmental league for the NFL? Can, say, the next Cooper Manning forego college and play for the Birmingham Stallions or whatever?
Can we get a Jim Kelly to choose the USFL and not go to the NFL?
Well, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be, can we get Jim Kelly when he's real young?
Yeah.
A developmental.
Can you get a Doug Flutie?
Well, right now it's going to be like, can you get a Doug Flutie? Can you get a guy, a diamond in the rough?
Right. Some guy who's talented, but he doesn't fit the mold of what the NFL wants.
And then in the future, you want a guy, instead of, say, how the Chiefs had Patrick Mahomes sit for a year before he played, or you have Jordan Love has been sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for the last 3 years.
You want to give him a chance to play, but in a development. You want a minor league. You don't want
exactly. Because I'm sure that this XFL, or the USFL, I'm sure this USFL and the XFL both, which will be starting back in 2023. Their sights are not set on we're going to be
against the NFL.
The NFL. They lost both times they tried to compete openly with the XFL. The NFL. Both times the USFL and the XFL openly tried to compete with the NFL. They lost, and they lost badly. XFL worse than the USFL, but you cannot.
McMahon is a genius.
You cannot beat the NFL. The NFL is a juggernaut.
No.
So they have their sights set at the level that they should be set at, which is minor league.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine, especially for us football fans who want to see the next generation come up.
Right.
Or talent that got missed out in the draft.
Right. The problem with that is you got a situation of the NFLPA is never gonna. The NFLPA would not approve this.
Why?
Well, wasn't this the whole problem of why the AAF couldn't support itself? Is they try to get backing from the NFL to send some of the second stringers and third stringers to the AAF, and the NFLPA just completely vetoed that.
I think that was more of a desperation move to get players, to draw in more people. Because I think what the XFL and the USFL are going to have to do is they're going to have to be on their own for a couple of years. They're going to have to.
They need to prove that this is sustainable.
Exactly. They need to, especially, we haven't seen one of these developmental leagues really go past year one. So we don't know how the teams are going to do. Jordan Tiamu or more importantly, PJ Walker. PJ Walker goes from XFL leading quarterback to backup in Carolina or wherever he was. What does that team do to get a new quarterback? How did the teams respond to that? That is what we need to be looking at for these teams if they can make it past a year. But they need to be.
Yeah. And this is going to create another thing, you're not going to see these huge records being broken, potentially, if you have to sit around in a minor league for a while. Because think about it this way, you get a guy like, I don't know, who's a rookie quarterback who immediately did well?
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, Justin Herbert. You get a guy like Justin Herbert, he's going to have, hopefully speaking, he's going to have 10, 15 years of him playing very, very well. In a more newer stance where you have a minor league, you might send a guy to the minor league for 3 or 4 years, hypothetically. He's not going to have a run at records anymore.
Well, yeah, that is true, but a lot of, it works well in every other major league sport in America. Every other major league sport except for the NFL has a minor league system that does develop talent. And especially Major League Baseball, where they're played at the same time. You can use the minor leagues as a rehab ground for your stars.
That's
if
true.
you come in,
and they do that for the G League and the NBA.
Exactly. So there is a use to it. There is a use to a minor league.
Yeah.
And not only that, and I think the thing that the USFL and the XFL last time around and this time around are pushing is that this is a second chance, or this is a new chance for these players that may have gotten overlooked. A Luis Perez, who, or especially a guy like Sloter, who bounced around. They showed his stats. He was on like 6 different NFL teams between 2017 and 2021, and he tried out for 26 teams.
Holy cow!
Yeah. So
that's a lot of moving around.
Yeah, exactly. So a guy like Sloter has been bouncing around the bottom half of the NFL for the last 5 years. A league like this gives him an opportunity, and that's what they were saying was on the broadcast. They said they had talked with Sloter, and Sloter said, "Yeah, I can continue bouncing around, being practice squad, whatever, for the next couple of years, or I can go to the USFL and have a whole year of starting experience under my belt.
Yeah.
Which, and if I do good, then
that get caught up.
Yeah, that helps me become a backup quarterback, or because you're not. I highly doubt you're going to see Heineke is probably the only example of a quarterback.
And even then, he still barely gets a chance. Man, poor Heineke.
But
he really only gets a chance because he got lucky and he started the playoff game because everyone else was hurt.
Exactly.
And he did well.
Yeah, you don't see these opportunities as often.
Yeah.
And Heineke even had the XFL.
Yeah.
He had some shots, and I got him a roster spot. I got him a third string job. Then everybody gets injured, and he gets a chance, and he becomes the starter, the de facto starter in Washington.
Yeah.
So it can happen.
A man right there. That's a real man.
And you have stories. You have the classic stories of Kurt Warner, who played in in Europe, in the arena leagues, and he bounced around everywhere, and eventually got a chance to start. And he led the greatest show on turf for 3 years, and then he got traded, and then he came back again.
Yeah.
Or you have there's a lot of talent, and NFL scouts aren't perfect by any means, by any stretch of the word, and they'll miss out on.
We still have a viewer,
and they will miss out on talent.
Still have one viewer.
And actually, that's one thing that that the 70s NFL did a little bit better was that. Or they had, it wouldn't be fun to watch now, but they had like 20 rounds of draft. Like, each draft had like 20 rounds. So you could go into those really small school guys.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. But you can go into those small schools and pick out the guys.
Yeah, and if this does become a minor league, then you could hypothetically sing like 10-round drafts.
Give you some more. No, and even then it doesn't need to be because like baseball only. Well, actually, baseball has
like 50 rounds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, you can.
The NBA has a minor league and they only have 2 rounds.
Yeah, you can keep it as 7 rounds and just pick up free agents. But it gives more. Right. What War was meaning in the 70s was they gave players the chance.
Right.
You drafted them. You made sure they got into the team, and by having 20 rounds of drafts, you had to do a lot more scouting, and you got to look at some of those smaller schools like Grambling, like the Steelers. A lot of their great players in the 70s were from smaller schools,
right?
Especially like Joe Green. He was from like a small historically black school,
right.
And
I mean you got players like Jerry Rice.
Yeah, exactly.
You got FCS stars,
and but you don't. Those guys don't get shots anymore because there's 7 rounds, and it's
you can
more
probably count on both hands how many FCS players get drafted in a year.
And if they get drafted, then there's or if they get picked up in free agency as an undrafted free agent. As an undrafted free agent, there's a lot less riding on you, or they can be a lot quicker to cut you. They don't give you as much of a chance. So if you screw up once, you're out.
Yeah.
So there could be a potential Jerry Rice like figure out there.
Yeah.
And makes one mistake, drops a pass in practice or something, he's gone, and you've missed out on the opportunities. That's where the USFL and the XFL, when it comes back in 2023 next year, that's where they will hopefully thrive. It's giving the smaller schools a chance to, and that's where a lot of these guys, a lot of the quarterbacks at least, have done. Brian Scott, the guy who won 38 games in a row, he set like an all-time record. He was setting all-time records in like Division III, and a lot of those, Shea Patterson not so much, but a lot of the guys that are starting in the league their names like who's that guy? They were guys who were setting records in Division II, Division III, NAIA even, I think had one. So it's giving them a shot.
Just back to the NAIA.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, they're giving these shots, and hopefully it can turn into gold. You find that diamond in the rough, and you're not gonna always find that diamond in the rough. There's gonna be a lot. Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of.
It's gonna be a lot of
coal in those.
Some coal, yeah.
Yeah, but if it works out, especially for an NFL team, if it works out, they find that diamond in the rough. They find that next Jerry Rice,
right?
That they didn't get an opportunity to in a 7-round draft. And then it makes the whole league worth it, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the broadcast style, or like the more outside. I know you probably have a little bit less experience at this.
I do. I will say.
So the first game was on NBC and Fox, which I told Dad this, but I'm not sure you heard this. It was actually the first simulcast, first time a professional football game has been on 2 broadcast networks since Super Bowl I. Super Bowl I was broadcast on CBS.
Breaking down the walls.
Yeah, it was broadcast on NBC and CBS, and this game was the first USFL game.
So did they have two different announcing? Or
no, it was just the same announcers. Right. Chris Collinsworth kid was there. He was on the sidelines.
Yeah,
that was weird.
I think they had a genuine, like, really good announcer for the Houston Gamblers and Michigan Panthers game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought it was Collinsworth. It might not have been.
It was his son. His son was his son? I believe so, because
it sounded just like him.
His son was, I'm going to guess it was his son, because his son, Jay Collinsworth, he was sideline reporting in the first game.
Right.
Or he was on the halftime show in the first game, so I assume he probably ended up being the...
I liked what they did with when they grabbed the head coaches. The first night they had the game of the Generals and the Stallions, thank you. And in halftime they grabbed Jeff Fisher and the... I liked when they got the coaches from the game tomorrow. And they had them go over it. I thought that was pretty great.
That's one of the blessings of having all the teams in one city, is that you can do that.
Yeah.
Also, so let's list some of the positives. So you like overall the announcing? Good. No, it was good. It's not
A level.
It's not Al Michaels and John Madden, because they ain't gonna put Al Michaels out there to broadcast the USFL.
Yeah.
But. Or they're not even going to put Joe Buck out there to broadcast the NFL.
Shocking.
He's now going to be the commentator on Monday Night Football, Joe Buck. Hey, it's better than what they had.
That's true.
Joe Buck isn't a terrible play-by-play guy.
He's better than what they make him out to be, but he's still pretty awful.
If you give him a good color.
Yeah.
Better than Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah, no. If he's all by himself pretty much, then it's the worst ever.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so they've had decent announcing. Not world's beating, but again, and they were saying about this
chance for newer guys.
Exactly. Hey, Chris Collinsworth kid ain't gonna get a chance.
Yeah.
If it weren't for a minor league football team.
Yeah.
Oh, he probably would get it because of just nepotism.
But you know.
But a guy like that, a younger guy.
And it looks better when he's starting off at a lower place.
Exactly. You're not putting him on Thursday Night Football saying, "Here's Jake Collinsworth."
You know, they introduce him as Collinsworth's son. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I was like looking at that. I was like, "Is that really? It has to be this kid." Because it legitimately sounded just like him.
Yeah. No, I thought it was him.
But anyway, announcing decent camera angles.
I thought they were okay.
And one thing I noticed as the games went on, and I guess they probably put less effort into the games on cable than the ones that were on the broadcast networks.
Yeah.
But in the first couple of games, they had a lot of drone shots. A lot of drone shots. Which, one time, that's a neat gimmick. If you do it on every single kickoff, it gets annoying.
It gets,
because you can't see.
And they're really loud.
Yeah, and the drones are very loud. Especially because they have like half the players on the field mic'd up. Yeah. So, and especially in that first.
Really annoying.
Well, in the first game, and they did better about this as it went on again, but in the first game, they were playing the commentators, the quarterback's audio, and the coach's audio all at the same time, and everybody was talking over each other. You couldn't hear a thing.
Now, I think some of the time, it's great.
Yeah. In the second game, or even later on in that first game, they had just one drive. So Fox does NASCAR coverage, and one of the things they do in NASCAR coverage is they call it crank it up, which is where you just the commentators this gives them a break, gives the commentators a break, and you just hear the cars vroom, vroom, around the track. So they did something like that for a whole drive in the first USFL game.
No, I think that's really smart.
Yeah. So and one thing, especially if you got former players in the booth. Some of the ones have had former quarterbacks in it. And what they did eventually, and it worked a lot better, was they cut out the coach's audio, and they just had the quarterback's audio. But instead of like an NFL where they just do it for the snap, they had it like throughout the
whole drive.
Yeah.
While the play develops.
Yeah, but so you could hear the quarterback call the signals, and then if you have a guy, a Tony Romo. You're not going to get Tony Romo, but if you have a guy who's...
a smart guy.
Or you have a former quarterback or a former player in the booth.
Tell you what he's saying.
Yeah, you can say, well, this, like, an even number play means that you're going to the right. And, like, if you're saying 30 Dover whatever, it means this. Or it could mean this. And eventually, as the game goes on, they pick up on the signals and can say, okay, this is what's going on. That's why that's why people loved Tony Romo when he first started out, was he brought something that nobody else
have never had.
Which was, here's the play, I'm going to call the play, this is the play that they're probably going to run, and this is why they're going to run it. And then, lo and behold, it happens. And it makes it easier on the commentators.
I love it when Romo is commentating. It's so cool to watch.
If you love football, you get a chance to actually go into the mind of a coach or a quarterback and see this is what the play means, this is what they're doing, this is where it's going to develop. And that's great. And so having the cacophony of noise, not so great. But if you just have it as the quarterback, you have the quarterback and the announcers, and eventually the announcers...
It's got potential. It's got serious potential.
And the announcers were learning to stay quieter. They didn't talk as much in the later games. So you could just hear the quarterback go. Yeah. And you would call the signal, and then they would kind of fade it down a little bit when he was getting ready to hike the ball, and the commentators would be like, "Oh, well, this means this, this, and this." Right. It worked out decently. Again, it's something you have to get used to. Yeah. It's definitely different from the NFL, but it's interesting. And for a minor league, the only people who are going to be watching a minor league football, unless you're really bored on a Sunday afternoon in the spring and you don't want to watch baseball or NASCAR or basketball playoffs. Are the devoted NFL.
It's kind of funny if you're choosing to watch a minor league or a developmental league football instead of the NBA playoffs.
Hey, I did that, so
yeah, I did partially.
But yeah, the only people who are going to be watching that are devoted football fans, and that's the target audience you want to be going for. Yeah. And so having this is interesting. One thing that they did, at least in the first couple of games, I didn't see it as much in the second game, I guess they'll probably do it more on their national broadcast games versus the cable ones. Was like Perez would throw a touchdown pass, and then right afterwards they had NFL wouldn't touch him until after the end of the game, or at least at the half. Mm-hmm. The USFL sent their sideline reporter over to Perez, and they had the iPad out, and he was looking at the play and basically going, "Hey Perez, what did you see on this?" And it wasn't like Perez didn't, he wasn't really eloquent or anything, but it was an interesting concept. Yeah. You wouldn't see that in the NFL. If somebody went up to Aaron Rodgers after he threw a touchdown pass, he'd probably cuss him out and say, "Go away."
Yeah, probably.
But for a developmental league,
and it gets a good judge of character as well for the NFL teams who might be interested.
Exactly, and if something like that does happen, and the team is watching on TV,
and you're not signing that guy.
Well, no, or you can even say or they score a touchdown, and they say, "Perez, what did you do there? What did you see?"
And he explains it perfectly in the way they wanted.
Exactly. Then that helps him out, going forward. That was interesting on the sidelines. Having coaches mic'd up where you can hear them more often was interesting. When they didn't have them all going at the same time. Yeah. They said drone shots. Crowd size. So for the first game, which is like we said, all the games are being played in Birmingham, which is part of the Bible Belt. But
which is a key bit of information.
Yeah, exactly. Because the first game, when it was the hometown team, Birmingham Stallions versus New Jersey, it had a great crowd. It was a pretty good crowd.
It's a Saturday night.
It's
you have the Friday off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's probably one of the best times you would have to start a league like this.
Yeah, exactly. And so they had 20 or 30,000. It was a loud crowd too.
It was, yeah.
And it was pretty full, and it looked like a fun atmosphere.
Yeah. Then
today's games happened.
Oh my gosh.
And it was more, and like we were saying, we probably blame this on
It's Easter Sunday.
It's Easter Sunday, yeah, exactly.
And you're in
the Bible Belt. Even if you're not religious, a lot of them probably are religious, so they didn't go to the. I was thinking that there would be more people in the later games. It didn't happen, but you didn't go to the morning game because our time it was noon kickoff. It was supposed to be a noon kickoff, and they ended up delaying it because of the rain, which also kept people away.
Right.
But it was a noon kickoff, so churches are just letting out.
Right.
Maybe. And nobody's gonna spend Easter Sunday go. Okay, just done with church. Let's go watch the USFL. Yeah. Especially, let's go watch two teams from cities that we don't care about.
Right. Michigan and Houston.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That seems like an interesting game. Yeah. So. Yeah, they had
not a lot of
handfuls of people, almost less than 1,000. I'd probably guess it was barren.
Yeah,
the stands.
It was very bad. I honestly believe that, going to an MTSU football game.
Oh yeah, there was
probably had more people.
We've had more people at Tech football games than.
Now I will say I went this past year to I think it was FIU. No, it was FAU. Which is the worser one, I believe, versus MTSU. And I was probably part of a crowd of 250 people. But it looked pretty identical to what looked in the Houston and Michigan game.
And it didn't get better, I'll say that much. So
didn't seem like it.
The USFL, and that's going to be a something to watch as we go on.
Yeah.
We know that the Birmingham games are probably going to be relatively packed.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is a hometown team.
Yeah. And
people are going to want to watch that.
Right.
Will people show up for any of the other teams in the league? And they're not designing this year to make a lot of money from ticket sales.
Yeah, it's deals.
Yeah, it's the TV deals.
Yeah.
That stuff is where they're going to be making their money.
Yeah.
And this year it's just about surviving.
Yeah.
You got to get especially because next year, if it works out, they don't lose a whole bunch of money. Mm-hmm. Then they can spread the teams out, go to their own cities, and then make more money on ticket sales that way.
Now I wonder, for a lot of these teams, where are they gonna base their stadium out of? Like Michigan, where's Michigan going to go? Are they going to go to Ann Arbor? Are they going to go to Detroit? Are they going to go to East Lansing, Kalamazoo? You know, who's going to let them?
I think there is it's going to be a smaller stadium. It's not going to be, you're not going to be playing in Ford Field.
Right.
And you're not going to be probably playing in the University of Michigan, or the big house.
Right. You might be playing in like Central Michigan or something like that.
But there are stadiums out there. Because we've seen with the USF or the XFL and the AAF, both of those leagues were able to find stadiums for their teams. It's going to be smaller level college stadiums, or just like Birmingham, like Iron or Legion Field in Birmingham, where it's a multi-purpose stadium that is usually used for football or whatever.
Right.
But they will find stadiums. Yeah. Don't get me wrong on that. But yeah. The crowd size is going to be...
but we will be one of those people.
Yeah, and...
Support your team.
And also where it comes in...
Well, Michigan
is the tickets. If you buy one ticket, you can get in for the whole day.
That's
so, if... Say, and the way they should schedule it as much as possible, if they want to, like... increase the devotion of other teams in the area, is you play the Birmingham game as the first game of the day. Play it on a Saturday or something.
Well, here's the other problem, though. If you put Birmingham at the end of the day, then maybe you draw more for that game.
Yeah, potentially. But if you want the TV product to look good, my thinking is, because they won't show up until the end. They won't show up till right before the Birmingham kick. So, because there are going to be more people there, or like, I'm not going to sit around and watch football all day. But I think you have a better shot at it if you put Birmingham first, how they play their game, and then you play the next game almost as soon as you can right afterwards, and hope that some people stick around. At least make the stands look a little bit fuller.
Right. Let's get a check on our viewers real quick.
But, overall, coaching quality, not real great.
Still someone out there.
Hello. Coaching quality, not super great. I did not like Mike Riley as a head coach.
Yeah. Put a Jeff Fisher for Coach of the Year if you're the one viewer out there. Drop that in the chat real quick.
You can't give him Coach of the Year if he lost his first game.
He's going to win every other one. It's okay.
Sure.
When Shea Patterson comes out and throws 5 touchdowns every single play.
Just you wait until you run into the New Orleans Breakers defense.
And they just completely obliterate them. He breaks the Breakers.
You can't.
You
can't beat Dave the Wave.
Dave the Wave.
He's their mascot.
Well, Dave the Wave is going to have a tough day.
I don't know. Either way.
Shea Patterson's going to wave goodbye to Dave the Wave.
Nah. You went with ugliest looking uniforms in the league.
They are kind of ugly.
That's why the best looking uniforms in the league.
But it's Michigan, and it's Shea Patterson.
And
it's Jeff Fisher? Oh my gosh. Could it get any better?
Yes, it could get a lot better. I think the Titans figured that one out.
Yeah.
But, Coach, as you can tell from our tone, coaches,
yeah.
Bob Stoops isn't in this league. Bob Stoops is going back to the XFL.
If Bob Stoops came, oh my gosh.
He's already hired for the XFL.
He's hired somewhere?
Yeah, the XFL. They announced... we'll talk about this real quick, because we're on the topic. The XFL announced their head coaches.
They did?
For 2023. They haven't announced any of the teams. There's rumors that 5 of the teams are going to be back. So, you'll have the Battle Hawks again. San Antonio will be back. A lot of the good drawing teams from the first year will be
cities.
back. Seattle, I think, will keep their team.
Oh, wow.
The Vipers are moving to...
Is this mainly... Okay, so here's a good question. Is the XFL mainly in the West Coast?
No, because they're going to have a team in Orlando. The
Okay.
Vipers are moving to Orlando. This is what the rumor is.
Okay.
And they're gonna remove the two teams they were removing were the Guardians, New York Guardians, and the Los Angeles Express.
Right. Okay.
Or whatever they were called. The LA Express were the team, or our team in the USFL. The Invaders, I think.
Okay.
LA Invaders.
Because here's the thing: if you have, the USFL is like all East Coast, pretty much, right?
Yeah, they're all
It's
mostly on the
mainly
East
on
Coast.
the east side of the U.S.
Mm-hmm. You could have an East-West thing with.
Right. You form a league between the XFL and the USFL, and you do an East-West system, and I think that would make sense, because then you could play mainly in your area.
Saves you money that way.
Yeah. Because it's gonna suck if you have to go from Seattle to Orlando.
But I don't know. That's a bridge we'll cross in a long time. But the main names from the new coaches for the USFL were Bob Stoops is going to be back.
He's gonna be a great coach.
Well, he's a decent coach.
He's gonna do well in the XFL though.
What were the other ones? Rod Woodson.
Okay.
Is going to coach.
That's a good coach.
Hines Ward also is coaching a team.
Okay.
I
don't recognize that name.
Hines Ward was a receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers for.
Is that why it's Heinz Field?
No, Hines.
Okay.
That's named after the ketchup company.
I was gonna say.
No, Hines Ward. I think it's Antonio Holmes. He was on the 2008 or whenever the Steelers won the Super Bowl, like in 2008 or 9. He was on that team. He was with them for a while. He was a really good receiver with them, but he hasn't had a lot of. I don't think he's had really any coaching experience.
Well, he's a big name at least.
They're hoping for a Coach Prime situation with Hines Ward.
Dude, imagine if you could get
If
Deion.
you can get Deion Sanders.
Deion.
No, he's making
He
so much.
never would leave.
Yeah, he's making so much money with Jacksonville State.
Right, and he's got his son there. I mean, he's got the perfect deal right now.
Yeah, exactly. But
hey, when he gets hired at Florida State though, and his son transfers,
I could see Florida State hiring.
They
Deion
should have
Sanders.
hired him.
Give him a couple more years to develop with Jacksonville State, and then bring him back to Florida State.
Yeah, probably.
There was one more name that I can't remember. Can you look up the coaches real quick?
I will, and I'll also look and see if our one viewer is still here.
But anyway, there is going to be that definite competition.
I love you so much, whoever you are.
There is
You're the
definitely
greatest.
that competition level will be there between the XFL and the USFL. XFL coaches 2023 is what you're going to look for.
Yeah. Wade Phillips.
Wade Phillips was the other name that you
Jim
might
Haslett.
Yeah, so Wade Phillips, defensive coordinator for a long time. Haslett was a coach in the NFL for a while.
Right. He was part of the Titans coaching staff this past year.
Yeah. So Stoops was at Oklahoma, you may remember.
Right.
Rod Woodson, safety for a long time, was a great player. He's coached positions in the NFL, I think, recently. Hines Ward's not done really anything. I think he's coached receivers at a lower level college.
He was the Florida Atlantic's wide receiver coach last year.
Yeah, so a lower level Conference USA.
Man, that is a stretch of a hire.
It's the name value.
It is. And you need a hire like that, I guess, in a league like this.
Now you're in 2023. If the USFL survives, you're going to be in direct competition with the USFL. If you're not eventually planning on merging with them, you are going to be in.
It's gonna merge.
They have to. Yeah. I think it's the only reason. The only way they both survive is if they merge.
Probably.
But
especially with House, I don't think the XFL stands a chance with the USFL if they don't merge.
Well, the problem you're gonna run into is the USFL will have had a year under its belt. Hopefully, these teams, for the most part, will stick around.
Right.
The coaches will stick around, and they'll have developed a system, and you can get better play on the field than the XFL.
If you can get to a third year, then I think you're gonna make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unless something super weird happens.
Yeah, unless like COVID, we get something weird like COVID pops up again or something.
Or another catastrophe of that level.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard. If you can get a couple years of momentum going. Well, no, I mean, there's been something like the Spring League, the United Football League. There's some very minor league teams that have been around for like 6 or 7 years and then fold. But they didn't have NBC and Fox and The Rock backing them up.
And I think if you can prove to Fox and CBS and all these big programs that you're sustainable for 3 years, then they're gonna give you the money you need to stick around.
Hopefully so. And at the very least, you can have enough. You may not be rolling in the dough, but you can have enough money coming in to keep the league going. And especially if your hope is, because I know the XFL has some relationship with the NFL. They're going to have some relationship with the NFL this next time around, as kind of a development, or not even a developmental, but more like it's going to test out rules and stuff for the NFL. But if you have the NFL's support and they want you to stick around, they can get you to stick around. Yeah. And the difference, say, NFL Europe was kind of the minor league for the NFL for a long time.
Right.
But the problem with that endeavor was Europeans don't like football.
Yeah.
And you didn't have as much visibility on the product. Yeah. I don't imagine that like the BBC or Channel 4 in the UK were broadcasting London Fire or whatever their name was. They weren't broadcasting their football games. They were probably just watching the Premier League or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but here in the NFL or in America, we love football. We can't get enough of football, whether it be college or pro or whatever. There's always going to be a demand for football.
Yeah. And
it's an untapped market in the spring, so you can get enough fans, even if the G League can stick around for however long it has, with the support of the NBA, then I think that the USFL and the XFL can hopefully do the same.
You literally, if you can get the NFL to back you, then you are golden. Don't got to worry about it. You'll make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now you just wonder about how there's a lot of weird difficulties that you'd have to work out with getting the NFL support. Like, is it straight up a minor league? Are you going to bid over players leaving from the...
It depends on how they model the team structure.
Right.
So if you do it like minor league baseball, or if you do it like the G League, you have one team for each minor league, or for each team.
Right.
But I'm not sure if spring football has the audience for...
Probably doesn't.
For 32 separate teams. You may.
Yeah.
I think what you probably do, or this is my guess, is it's going to be kind of a weird solution, and I'm mostly saying this just so I have more time to think about it, is that your NFL teams, each team says, we're going to have 10 players that we're going to put on these rosters, and they get divided out among the teams. And then or you can either have it as a waiver system where any NFL team, basically practice squad players, but instead
they don't
of
specifically belong to a team.
Well, kind of. So in practice squads, any team can pick up a practice squad player from any team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. If I remember correctly, you can pick up a practice squad player from any team. So basically, treat your practice squad as a separate league.
Right.
And as a developmental league, more so. So you can say, here's our 10 young players that we really want to get more snaps before bringing them to the NFL. Put them into the USFL/XFL. And either you can have those 10 locked in, and they can only be brought up by the original team, or you say... that way, you probably do something like that, so then you could put your first rounders in there or something like that. But if you didn't want to do that and you wanted it to just be more developmental, hopefully these guys get a shot. You have 10 guys, you throw them down there like a practice squad and say anybody can pick them up if they start doing good.
Right.
Or maybe give the original team first dibs on them, and if they say no, then you can go to the next team or something like that.
Right.
Make them off of waivers.
There's a lot of logistical problems right now.
Mm-hmm.
But, and especially if you can get the XFL to merge in with it, that's like 16 teams right there.
Yeah, because there's 8 teams in the... Yeah, there'll be 2 18-team leagues.
Right.
You can even do, if it's 16 teams, you can have each team or each XFL or USFL team has 2 NFL teams into them, and you can have...
It'd just be a little interesting.
I don't know, yeah, it's something that they'll definitely have to deal with.
There's a lot of ways you could solve this problem. there's just not a lot of good ways.
Yeah,
you have to really think long and hard.
This is definitely something that Granville's friend, the commissioner, Roger Goodell, will have to really think hard about if he wants to pursue this option.
Me and Raj.
Or you could just add a whole bunch of teams. But then if you add a whole bunch of teams, then it dilutes the
Maybe I
quality.
should call him up.
I don't know. It's definitely something. But overall, I keep dipping out of frame. Overall, the quality hasn't been great. It's been good, but not great. But again, first week, 3 weeks of practice. It'll get better.
It will.
And for 3 weeks of practice, it's been pretty good quality.
Yeah.
And there's some guys training dribbling. There's some of the receivers, especially for the Generals and the in the Panthers. They had some really good receivers that could make some waves. So there are definitely options open. Go out there. The Breakers defensive lineman, who was the first overall pick, he played for Georgia, or the first defensive pick, played for Georgia, and he had like 3 or 4 sacks in that game versus the Stars. So there's quality out there. There's people who maybe
there's going to be some call-ups.
Hopefully, yeah. And hopefully we'll be able to see that at some point. And again, don't expect the next Kurt Warner or Doug Flutie.
Shea Patterson is going to leave this league and become the next Tom Brady.
Don't expect that to happen. But do expect that this league, it's going to be for fun. Or not for us, it'll be fun to watch. It gives us some.
When I walk in here next week, when I have a Shea Patterson jersey on,
and that
it is do or die.
Yeah, sure.
I have placed a $1,000 wager on this league making it to a second year.
You should just be a Breakers fan. I don't know. Also, you should just be a Browns fan too.
If I've said it before and I will say it again, if the Lions draft Aiden Hutchinson with their number 2 overall pick, then I will become a Lions fan. I guarantee you. If they don't, then I'll have a free agency and you can sign me to your football team.
You gotta be a
and I will become a fan. But I am in the market for a team.
I can give you reasons not to be a fan of any NFL team except for the Browns.
Well, you heard it here first. That's the end of our SportsCast, ladies and gentlemen.
Is it really?
It doesn't have to be, but we are running low.
Yeah, we are running a little late, but
I don't know. It seems like a good closing note to me.
All right, well,
we're having a free agency soon. When's the NFL draft?
Next couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll figure out then.
Yeah, we'll probably next week bring some discussion. Well, we'll not spend the whole time talking about the USFL. We'll hopefully...
You can email us at not Ask Ben and Gran, but Ask
Gran and Ben at gmail.com.
We will fix that one day.
Ask Gran and Ben at gmail.com.
Gran and Ben.
Yeah. It's just
Gran
take
first.
Yeah, take the Gran out of there and then flip it with the Ben. But email that if you have any questions for us, if you want more discussion on the USFL.
You can make your offers of why I should become a fan of your football team and not the Browns or the Lions, or why I should be a Browns or Lions fan.
Well, you should be a Browns fan because, like Michigan, we don't have a mascot. We're the one NFL team that doesn't have a mascot.
It's not a big deal to me.
You know, mascots are awful.
Mascots are fine to me.
Like Michigan.
I think I would be more convinced to be a Browns fan if you had a giant football helmet walking around. If you had a gigantic football helmet as a mascot, then I would. That would make me more.
I'll ring Jimmy Haslam about that. Like Michigan, we were really good in the early days of the sport, and we had a lull.
We've had this conversation.
We picked up into the 90s, and then we had a lull for a long time.
I do like a autogram a lot, but
we were like innovators. We were true sportsmen, and now.
I don't know. I kind of would like to consider that Browns to be the Ravens.
No.
Just so we can say that the Browns have never made the playoffs.
No. We made the playoffs. We won a playoff game.
Oh, okay. Now you have. That's right. But for the longest time.
See, you can't pick any.
We are not getting into this.
You can't pick any of the
because
other
it will
NFC.
take 30 minutes.
You can't pick any of the other NFC North teams because they're all awful.
Oh, okay.
They're all the worst.
Well, no, I wouldn't choose the Ravens. Don't get me wrong.
The Ravens are.
Unless you, viewer out there, can make an enticing offer of why
Ravens
I should become...
are turncoat backstabbers. Left the town in the middle of the night.
I like the Baltimore Colts.
Exactly.
Oh.
Also, backstabbers. See, I've had this discussion before. You can lay claim to the old team's stuff if you keep the name of the team. Like
so the Colts can still.
Yeah, the Colts can claim Baltimore. They can claim Johnny Unitas because they kept the Colts name. They just changed the city.
I wouldn't agree with that because I think the Titans should still be able to have the Oilers.
No.
I would not give
Titans.
the Oilers to the Texans, though.
I think that they don't.
No.
Closer to the Texans. See, the Texans is a weird situation because they didn't reuse the name.
Right.
They should have, and they probably would have, if the Titans didn't keep a hold of the Oilers trademark.
Here's a question for you. If the NBA brings back the Seattle Supersonics, does that mean that the Thunder lose claim to all of the Supersonics history?
See, there is a problem with it is the period of time. The Oilers left in like the 97 or like in the late 90s.
I think.
And then the Texans were formed like the next time there was expansion in like 2000.
2007, 2008.
No, it was like 2000.
Okay, never mind.
It was like
never mind.
It was like a couple of years, and then they formed the Texans.
Right.
Well,
it took like a decade for the Browns.
No, it only took a couple of years.
I thought it took like a decade.
Like 2 years.
Okay.
Because
about,
part of the conditions for the Ravens moving to Baltimore was that the NFL promised to bring the Browns back to Cleveland and so that they could keep the records.
Okay.
But
was that really?
Yeah, it was. But the thing is, if there's a team that's like right afterwards, you can lay claim. But in the position of Seattle, the Supersonics haven't been there since like what, 2009?
Something like that. It's been a bit.
Yeah, it's been like 10 years. If they brought the Seattle Supersonics back now, it's hard to lay claim to the Supersonics.
I feel like I could so easily find some case like that would contradict your argument.
I wouldn't necessarily say that I wouldn't let the Seattle Supersonics have the new Seattle Supersonics have the old records.
I really wouldn't say that.
But it's hard to do that with a 10-year gap.
And another thing is one gigantic thing about that was the Supersonics moved when they were pretty not bad or anything. Like KD was KD was like pretty good when they left.
Mm-hmm.
And then he becomes, great in Oklahoma City. I don't know.
See, like the Raiders moved everywhere, but they were always the Raiders, so they could get to keep all their records. The Chargers moved from LA to San Diego, and now San Diego back to LA. They get to keep their name they get to keep the records because they kept the name. But Baltimore doesn't because they changed the name. Titans shouldn't because they changed the name. They gave up on their past.
What about the Tennessee Oilers?
They changed their name still.
Tennessee Oilers, though. That was a thing.
But they changed their name eventually.
But that was a thing.
I know, but they changed their name.
It was a gradualism.
Yeah, because I don't think they had the rights to the Titans name yet. And it doesn't make Tennessee Oilers doesn't make sense because we don't have oil wells in Tennessee, Granville.
I think that. Well, no, they don't have Raiders in Las Vegas.
Yeah, you do. Have you ever been down to the Strip?
All right. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, well, we'll bring it to an end. I know my opinions only reflect the opinions of me. They don't reflect the opinions of the SportsCast or Granville. So, So if you're a Titans fan out there and you're upset that I don't think that you all get Earl Campbell, even though he played in Houston his entire life, didn't even probably know the capital of the state of Tennessee. Even though they also part of the argument there is just one last thing real quick. Titans make the argument for the Oilers just because they want to have the Oilers jerseys as throwbacks, right? Yes. The Titans already got good throwback uniforms. They got the 2000s ones from when they went to the Super Bowl.
We want the Oilers.
The Oilers don't.
We wore the Oilers.
No, I'm saying the Texans don't have a good throwback. The Texans have worn the same uniform since their first.
Right,
game.
But it would be so wrong because it's the complete opposite color.
It's from Houston.
So, you go from the
okay. If this is the wrong color, then what about the Patriots throwback jerseys where they wore red? Is that...
The Patriots still have a little bit of red in a lot of their jerseys.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
They're all blue and
silver. They
have
it in their...
Okay, just like a little stripe on the leg doesn't mean that...
They have the logo, and they still have, a lot of their Color Rush have them, and...
Because they had
most of their
uniform.
Jerseys still have red.
Whatever.
But it's completely different to go from black and red to the Titans light blue and white and navy and
Titans don't even wear that style, that light blue anymore. It's all dark blue the Titans wear now.
No.
Dark blue and silver is what they wear now.
No.
Yeah.
Whatever. You can be satisfied with your wrong opinion.
The Oilers, the throwbacks get to stay in Houston. That's what I'm saying.
They get to stay nowhere because no one will let them.
No, I think the next couple of years they're gonna let them wear different helmets now. I'm pretty sure.
Dumb.
What do you mean it's dumb?
Shut up. We don't have to get because we're running late.
I think it's good that they can wear different helmets.
I think you're wrong.
I think you're wrong too.
Either way, one viewer is very enticed by this. Oh, ow.
I see. We had to wait until Granville knocked into that. It wasn't a show.
You're right.
We didn't get that. Either way, on that note, we'll come to it.
Let's see if we still have our one viewer. Thank you, whoever you are. You've stayed with us to the end.
Thank you for watching.
I love you.
The SportsCast of Ben and Gran. Yeah. I've been Ben. This has been Gran, the commerce comment sexton. Who's incorrect on his opinions on throwback jerseys. Wishing you all...
You can't see his hand, but it's actually crossed.
Wishing you a good afternoon, a good evening, a good week. Hope to see you all back here again 7:30.
We'll have an intro for the next week.
Yes, we will hopefully have an intro.
And we will have a VOD for the first time ever.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for watching. See you all next week. Good night.
Good night.
Sorry.
Still live.